The Dark Presence is my favorite antagonist because Enigma is central to its character. And it's not a riddle you can ever totally solve. It's the kind of enigma you can guess at and theorize about exhaustively, assemble all the available evidence, and still arrive at an incomplete picture. But the enigma itself is what makes it so compelling. By the end of Alan Wake, the player still won't know much about the Dark Presence we've been battling the entire game. We don't know its true form, or if it has any form at all. We know nothing about its origin or history, where it came from, or whether it came from anywhere. We don't know its nature. We don't know what sort of life form it is, or if it can even accurately be labeled a living being. We don't know its true motivations or goals, what it wants. All we know about the Dark Presence are its actions, which are manipulative, violent, and deadly, and the effects of its sway, which are malign, disturbing, and horrific.
But before we dig into how the Dark Presence's character was crafted, we need to talk about the Dark Place. It's important to make clear that within the story of Alan Wake, the Dark Place and the Dark Presence are two different things. The Dark Place is a location you can go. The Dark Presence is an entity that currently inhabits the Dark Place and uses its power to further its own uncanny ends. It isn't clear what the true connection between the Dark Place and the Dark Presence is, or if there is any meaningful connection at all. The Dark Place could be the Dark Presence's place of birth, its origin, its home, its natural environment. The Dark Presence could also be an accidental creation of the poet Thomas Zane, formed by a mixture of an artist's passionate imagination and the generative powers of the Dark Place.
Or it could be none of those things. The Dark Presence may have originated elsewhere, may have discovered the Dark Place and its power entirely by accident, and may have been trapped inside the Dark Place only relatively recently. We simply do not have answers to any of these questions, and that's an intentional choice by the writers. Alan Wake is weird fiction, a genre I've discussed a lot on this channel, and one of the key themes of weird fiction is unknowability, which thematically reflects all the unanswerable questions within our own lives. But moving on, what exactly is the Dark Place? Nestled in the cold mountains and pine forests of the Pacific Northwest state of Washington, there's a small, rural, former mining town called Bright Falls, a seemingly cheerful and traditional American small town. Yet beneath that cheerful face lie dark secrets, because Bright Falls is also the focal point of a series of strange events, unexplainable phenomena, and uncanny disappearances. Near Bright Falls there lies Cauldron Lake, one of the deepest lakes on planet Earth, thousands of feet deep. This is a caldera lake, a sinkhole lake formed by volcanic eruption and collapse. Somewhere down in the murky, uncharted, lightless depths of Cauldron Lake exists an entrance to the Dark Place, a chaotic and primordial layer of reality that exists beneath our own. An impossible place where the physical fabric of reality is not settled and stable the way it is in ours. A place where true, spontaneous creation is still possible. How did this entrance come to rest at the bottom of Cauldron Lake? How was it opened? Who opened it? Where did it come from? How and when was the Dark Place formed? Has it always been there, waiting for us? Is it a gift from God or a curse from the devil? Once again, these are questions without answers, part of the story's enigma in Alan Wake. The 2 DLC chapters of the first game are set entirely within the Dark Place, and that's where I'm drawing most of my information. The Dark Place is a chaotic, confusing, and constantly changing setting, where people and objects spontaneously emerge into existence and then just as quickly vanish into nothingness, where the entire landscape and everything in it are subject to dramatic change at any moment, and where even the laws of physics, gravity, and reality are malleable. unalterable by a mere whim. Alan Wake describes the dark place as conceptual and subjective, meaning it is based on abstract ideas, thoughts, and beliefs, that its reality is defined by the subjective perspective of whoever happens to be perceiving it. The dark place is infinite in size, larger than our entire universe. It's actually possible that what we think of as reality is merely a single, semi-stable thread dangling from the underbelly of the dark place. That the dark place is the true reality, the true state of the universe, or multiverse, or whatever this whole thing is. At its essence, the dark place is a setting of creation, where literally anything, any fictional character, any abstract idea, any thought, can become real. The dark place influences our reality. Things conceived within it can become real in our world. One big example of this miraculous conception is the entirety of the plot of Alan Wake and the character Alan Wake himself. The entire story of Alan Wake, everything that happens to this character, his entire journey, every enemy he faces, every obstacle, even his ultimate success, is created within the dark place first, then later willed into reality by its power and actually written into existence by Alan Wake himself. Anyone's thoughts can sway the chaotic powers of creation within the dark place, and thus sway our reality. But artists, writers, musicians, people who are already creators, who are experienced at crafting new realities in their minds, whether on a blank canvas or a blank page, tend to have a far stronger sway on the dark place than others. This is why someone like Alan Wake, not a professional fiction author by trade, but a prolific and successful one, is able to craft so much using the power of the dark place. Let's move away from description and examine its role in the story, which is actually easy to understand. Within this narrative, the dark place is simply the source of everything supernatural that happens over the course of the story. Alan Wake is a game where a lot of weird stuff happens. Most audiences won't be satisfied unless they are given an explanation. The dark place and its powers are defined enough to satisfy that need, while remaining vague enough to allow anything to happen, no matter how strange the story gets. The writers can always say, well, the dark place did it. The dark presence has a similarly simple role. It is the antagonist, the adversary, the obstacle to be overcome. It is malevolent, wrongness distilled into its most basic and violent form. In many ways, its motivations and true nature don't actually matter to the story. What matters is that it gives the protagonist something to overcome and thus grow into a hero. I'll discuss Alan's journey and his growth in another video. As noted earlier, we know little about the dark presence. Narratively, we know exactly as much as we need for Alan Wake's personal journey to make sense, to have meaning. With that said, let's examine what we do know about the dark presence's background. The dark presence begins with the story of Thomas Zane, either because Zane is the accidental creator of the dark presence, or because their disastrous interaction was the first recorded event in which the dark presence influenced our reality. Thomas Zane was a famous poet, at least he was back in his original timeline. In ours, his entire life and everything he ever wrote were erased by him, as explained later. In 1970, he visited Bright Falls and discovered the reality-altering power of the dark place. He lived in the Birdleg cabin on Diver's Isle, an island in the middle of Cauldron Lake, with his lover, Barbara Jagger, whom he described as his muse. One day, Barbara drowned under uncanny circumstances in Cauldron Lake. Zane was heartbroken, but his assistant, Dr. Emil Hartmann, a minor antagonist in the story, convinced Zane to use the power of the dark place to write Barbara Jagger back to life, which Zane did.
Next, one of two things happened. Either Zane made a mistake and, in rewriting his dead lover, accidentally wrote the dark presence to life beneath her skin, bringing into existence a broken soul inhabiting her new body. Or the dark presence had always existed within the dark place and seized the opportunity to hitch a ride into our reality through her. Either way, the result was the same. The dark presence gained a physical presence in our world and escaped the dark place. We don't know what it did next with its new body. The entire timeline was erased, as if it never happened. Realizing his mistake, Thomas Zane used the power of the dark place again, this time to erase his own entire life, everything he had ever written and everything he had ever done, trapping both himself and the dark presence, still inhabiting his lover's body, inside the dark place. That wasn't all. As a contingency in case the dark presence ever escaped, or as a master plan to ultimately defeat it, Zane wrote a new human being into existence, a fictional character who would exist in our reality as a real person whose story would contain the key to sealing away the dark presence for good. That person was, of course, Alan Wake, the titular protagonist of the game, whose entire life and choices were almost certainly set into motion by Thomas Zane. We'll discuss the complexities of this creation in another video. What matters for this video is that the dark presence was trapped inside the dark place by Thomas Zane, and it wanted out. Exactly why it wants out and what it would do if it ever escaped is unclear, but judging by the limited sway it already has on our reality, the violence, the destruction, the death, the horror, its escape would be very bad news for the entire world. The Dark Presence's plan of escape was simple. Wait for another artist to show up in Bright Falls, then manipulate them into using the Dark Place's reality-altering powers to write it a new escape route. The closest it came after Zane was with the 1970s metal band Old Gods of Asgard, from whom it stole the ravens that serve as a common enemy in the game, and who apparently used their music to seal the dark presence away again, sacrificing a piece of their sanity in the process. Dr. Emil Hartmann, Zane's former assistant, attempted to use the dark place's reality-altering powers for his own greedy purposes. He was not in league with the dark presence. He was simply selfish. Lacking the artistic skill and imagination to use the dark place himself, he became a therapist, opened an artist's retreat, and used it to lure real artists to Bright Falls, in the hope he could manipulate them into doing what he wanted. Unfortunately for both him and the entire world, the Dark Presence then used these artists to continue altering reality in dark, deadly ways, the cause of the strange events, unexplainable phenomena, and uncanny disappearances around Bright Falls. None of these artists had the same level of imaginative power as Thomas Zane, so none were able to alter reality enough for the Dark Presence to actually escape the dark place. They could only change small things, carving ugly but ultimately non-existential fault lines in our reality, until the arrival of Alan Wake. This is where the game's story begins. Popular supernatural thriller author Alan Wake, suffering from a long stint of writer's block,
goes on vacation to Bright Falls, hoping rest and relaxation will help his writing. Deep down in the lightless depths of Cauldron Lake, writhing in its infinite cage, the dark presence stirs. It senses the arrival of an author with the creative power to write its escape into the world. But that author won't do it willingly. He must be manipulated. So the dark presence sets a new plan in motion. From here, we watch a few cutscenes to examine how the dark presence is portrayed.
Hello? Mr. Stuckey?
Carl couldn't make it. Unfortunately, he was taken ill. But I have the key for you and instructions on how to get to the lake.
Okay.
I wish you a good stay in my cabin. I'll come by later to check how you've settled in. And to meet your wife. I insist.
Thanks.
Cauldron Lake is a special place. Very inspiring.
This is a classic horror introduction. The uncanny woman in the dark, her face covered by a veil, appearing as if from nowhere and acting strangely. There's something immediately off about her behavior, her voice, her whole presence. Everything about this introduction is meant to set off alarm bells in the player's head. Everyone who watches this cutscene already knows who the antagonist of this story is, even if we don't yet understand its true nature, that this woman is merely a puppet for something much stranger and much worse. This is Barbara Jagger's body, empty of its original soul, possessed by the dark presence, contorted like a puppet to speak with the dark presence's voice. The dark presence briefly returned the island to our reality, using the dark place's creative power. Barbara Jagger's body is not an illusion. It physically exists in our world and is even aging normally. Her body has aged as much as a typical human would over the last 30 to 40 years since Thomas Zane brought her back. She was much younger when she first died. Let's jump ahead to the moment the dark presence seizes control of Alan Wake's destiny. He drives to the cabin on the lake. After an argument with his wife, Alice, he storms outside, and then this scene plays.
Alice? Alice? Alice! The cabin had gone dark. All the lights were out.
Alan! Alan! Where are you? Help!
Alice! I'm coming! It's all right, I'm coming!
No!
What the hell?
Help me! Alan! No!
Alice? Alice? Oh no!
Keep going, Alan. Wake up.
Alice? Waking up in the crashed car felt like I had woken from one nightmare and entered another. I couldn't remember how I got there. All I knew was that something terrible had happened to Alice.
What's happened is that the dark presence has essentially kidnapped Alice, dragging her down into the dark place to hold as a prisoner. When Alan dives into Cauldron Lake, he too becomes trapped in the dark place. There, the Dark Presence promises that if he writes the correct story, he'll be able to write his wife into freedom. But the Presence keeps editing that story, making it darker, uglier, more violent, more supernatural, all in an attempt to escape. Realizing what's happening, Alan writes a new story, his own, and that's the one we experience in the game. From this moment on, everything we experience is the story Alan Wake wrote. It begins with a car crash, a lost memory, and a missing wife. It becomes a horrific journey through a rural town, chased by monsters and hunted by a supernatural being of tremendous power. And it ends with a sacrifice. Wake choosing to trap himself in the dark place again, perhaps forever, in exchange for Alice's freedom. The Dark Presence's sway is visible everywhere in the story. It's a physical force, violent, destructive, tearing trees up by their roots, throwing cars. It's also manipulative. It seizes control of people, transforming them into violent shadows of themselves, broken puppets, madly repeating old lines and doing the Presence's bidding. To stop Alan Wake and prevent him from finishing the journey he wrote for himself, a journey that would end with the Presence being lost permanently in the chaotic depths of the dark place. It can be hard to tell which scenes are of Alan Wake's own making, obstacles he must overcome for the story to have excitement, drama, and meaningful sacrifice, and which scenes result from the Dark Presence's influence on the making of the story. Violent episodes it adds to break his spirit. To finish this video, I want to watch 3 more short scenes to see more of how the Dark Presence is portrayed.
Barry Wheeler speaking.
This is Rose.
Rose?
I found Mr. Wake's pages.
Oh, you sweet, brilliant girl.
Could you and Mr. Wake come get them? I live in the trailer park outside the town.
We'll be there in less than an hour.
I know.
See you soon.
Have a great day. Hope you come back soon. Welcome to the
Oh Dear Diner.
Good girl.
Welcome to... Oh dear. Mr. Wake. I'm so glad you're here.
Rose, you have my manuscript?
Oh. Oh yes. Yes. Please, come in.
Hey, this is really good.
Rose,
Yes,
my manuscript. I really need it.
I understand. I know what you need. A muse to inspire you.
Oh, for Barry? She doesn't have anything.
Yeah, hey, Al, what's... Oh...
Barry! What? What?
We see one of the Dark Presence's most formidable, horrific abilities, its power to control. It can seize your body and force you to say and do anything, but it usually nudges you toward things you already wanted, at least a little. The waitress, Rose, already has a huge crush on Alan Wake. Normally she would never lie to him, or drug him and embarrass herself this way. Under the Dark Presence's sway, one malevolent touch is enough to push her into acting out her most destructive fantasies. At its heart, the Dark Presence is a manipulator. It doesn't usually smash to get what it wants. It turns to violence only when other means fail. It prefers the quiet approach, tricking people into doing what it wants, under the guise of giving them what they want. If freed from its prison, I don't think the Dark Presence would immediately begin a reign of terror and destruction. It would keep behaving as it has, lurking in the shadows, manipulating from afar, twisting people into their worst selves.
I promised I'd come visit you and your lovely wife. You must finish what you started. I insist.
You must turn the lights on. Turn the light on.
Back to work, boy.
I felt nauseous, hungover. Only anger kept me going.
I can't tell reality from dream anymore, but it seems I have an imaginary editor to help me. She's an old woman in a funeral dress. I call her Barbara Jagger. She's very strict. I'm writing faster and faster. My manuscript is being heavily revised. The edits are getting very aggressive, and each day there's less of me and more of her. I hate it, but I know she's right. She promises me I can save Alice this way. She knows more of this than I do. About the complex incantation I'm attempting. About this place. She's worked with another writer under similar circumstances, Thomas Zane. The genre of the story seems to be shifting. It's turning into a horror story. I'm getting close. I can feel it.
On the TV screen, we're seeing the true Alan Wake. Alan trapped in the dark place, writing his story to free Alice. The story the Dark Presence plans to use to escape into our reality. We don't see the presence here, but we hear Alan describe its influence. Under its sway, he writes more and more, faster and faster, and the story itself becomes increasingly twisted. Instead of a straightforward heroic tale about rescuing his wife, it becomes a horror story. Because of the Dark Presence, the video game Alan Wake, the one we're playing, has all these horror influences. Left to himself, Alan wouldn't have written it this way, filling it with so much darkness. However, I believe the Dark Presence made a mistake. It's precisely because of the darkness in the story that Alan is able to succeed in freeing his wife. As Kurt Vonnegut once advised his students, be a sadist. No matter how sweet and innocent your leading characters, make awful things happen to them so the reader can see what they're made of. Thanks to the Dark Presence's violent, horrific sway, we get to see what Alan is made of, and he grows. Only by overcoming the challenges the Dark Presence throws at him is Alan able to craft a story formidable and meaningful enough to overcome the presence itself. Like so many antagonists, through its own diabolical actions, the Dark Presence creates the very circumstances that lead to its destruction. I also appreciate the meta-elements in Alan Wake's story. It's a story within a story within a story. Alan Wake himself is a fictional character within a fictional world, one obsessed with writing fiction. And those layers let the writers spend time commenting on the storytelling process itself, and how supernatural thrillers are written, why certain tropes are used, what makes them exciting and appealing, and how to imbue a story with meaning. Alan Wake, the video game itself, serves as both an essay on and a demonstration of what makes weird, supernatural thrillers tick. It's fun. Let's move on to the final scene we'll examine in this video, which is also one of the game's last moments, the defeat of the Dark Presence.
Hell!
Baby, you were having a bad dream. It was just another nightmare.
No,
Everything's fine. You're home.
it wasn't a dream.
Everything's fine.
Turn the lights on. Turn the lights on!
Now you will never get her back. I am much older than you. Older than your first work of art. I will find a new face to wear. Someone else to dream me free.
Alan Wake dives back into Cauldron Lake, back into the dark place. This time by design, fully aware of the consequences of this choice. Inside the dark place, in a final desperate ploy, the dark presence tries one last manipulation. It recreates Alan's apartment and wears Alice's face. But the trick is obvious and amateurish, easily pierced by someone who understands its shallow, manipulative nature. In the final confrontation, the dark presence tries to use Alan's fears, anxieties, and doubts against him, speaking in the voices of his friends and family, and accusing him of being his worst self. None of it works. Even if some barbs contain a grain of truth, they're little more than petty insults from an antagonist that knows the end has come. We even hear how it tried to manipulate Thomas Zane, equally ineffective. When everyone knows you're a liar, your lies lose whatever power they had. Its final words are the usual promise. This isn't the last you'll see of me. I'll be back. Alan Wake 2 releases the same day as this video. And it's possible the dark presence returns as an antagonist. After all, it isn't dead, it can't die, because it was never alive. At least not in the way you or I are. The dark presence isn't a biological creature. It's something else entirely. Perhaps a shadow that can never be fully erased from the dark corners of the universe. However, it's clearly gravely wounded here, rendered powerless and cast into the tumultuous depths of the dark place. If it recovers at all, it won't be for a long time. The dark presence is defeated by light, just as its lies and manipulations are defeated by truth. It is malevolent, vile, devious, manipulative, destructive, and yet fascinating, precisely because it isn't human. A life form with neither life nor form, something for which our language has no adequate word. It isn't a spirit, ghost, or demon, but something else altogether, an enigma without explanation. Those inexplicable qualities make the dark presence such a compelling antagonist, and I hope the developers are able to create a new antagonist that is just as weird.